Hey guys, this is Brian again with Bokashi.com back in Lawrenceville, Georgia. It's about the first week of June and it's pretty warm out. It's about 85 degrees, cooled down from about 95. And it's a good time to sit and do a quick video on how to start a Bokashi bucket. Bokashi composting, as you may or may not know, is a form of composting that is anaerobic, meaning it is without oxygen. The standard composting that we do in the US is aerobic composting, where you would sit and turn your compost pile. You're pretty limited sometimes on what you can put in your compost pile. Generally, no-nos of typical composting are meats, dairies, things like that. With Bokashi composting, you don't have to worry about that. With Bokashi composting, you don't have to worry about CN ratios. You don't have to worry about turning a pile. You don't have to worry about what can I put in, what can I not put in. So what we're going to do today is take a few minutes and show you how to start a Bokashi bucket. I've been pretty fortunate. I've had my son and his girlfriend come in from Germany, so we've had a bunch of dinners at the house. We've had some guests over and we've had some dinners that we brought back home, and we have a lot of leftovers. And I'm going to show you what you can do with these leftovers with Bokashi composting, which is unlike your standard composting. All your kitchen scraps, all your kitchen waste can be reused. So let's go ahead, take a few minutes, and go right to it. See you in just a second. Alright guys, let's begin. First thing you're going to need, one of the most important things you're going to need when you're Bokashi composting, is some Bokashi bran. This is a Bokashi brand that I make myself, and you can see it at Bokashi.com. It's a wheat brand that has been inoculated with a mixture of beneficial microorganisms. These beneficial microorganisms, what they're going to do is they're first going to preserve the food that we are composting. Second thing they're going to do is break it down. While it's sitting in a bucket and we're in a collection phase of our composting, first we have to collect our foods. While it's in that collection phase, a lot of the times in a standard aerobic pile, you'll notice that there's a bad smell. You can smell an ammonia smell, possibly a rotted smell. It's just not a good smell, and that smell is more of like a pathogen. So with Bokashi composting, what we do during the collection phase is we layer this bran that's been inoculated with the microorganisms that are going to do all the work for us in between layers of food. So you have a layer of bran, a layer of food, a layer of bran, and then it gets pushed down. It gets pushed down so that we can make better contact between the food and the wheat bran in this case, and it also removes air pockets. Bokashi composting is anaerobic, without oxygen, and there's a couple benefits to that. Number one, there's no smell, or there's very little smell. It's in a closed container, whereas in an open pile, it's open to the animals, it's open to the atmosphere. It's a less controlled type environment and less controlled situation. Another thing is, whenever you've gone past a compost pile that doesn't smell quite right, you'll smell an ammonia smell. That tells you that your compost pile is out of balance. You're losing the ammonia, you're losing the nitrogen. When you smell that, you're losing what you're trying to put into the ground. You're losing your nutrients that you want your final compost to have. With Bokashi composting, it stays in a bucket. So all of that is trapped. It doesn't get blown out to the atmosphere, and it doesn't have to be taken care of. It doesn't have to be covered, turned, whatever. So really the first thing we got to do is with the wheat bran, and that's this stuff right here. Next thing you're going to need is a bucket. Here I have a bucket that I make, my little Bokashi fermentation bucket, and really any bucket will do. I would like you to get my bucket, obviously, but a 5-gallon bucket would do, a 4-gallon bucket, a 3-gallon bucket, any kind of bucket, any kind of container. Now this container is a little 4-gallon plastic container, and you'll notice here it has a spout. When we're Bokashi composting, as the food begins to break down, or if you have a food that's high in moisture content, you'll get liquid, and the liquid will collect in the bottom of the bucket, and you'll eventually want to drain it out. You can use buckets without drains. All you'll have to do is every now and again turn it to the side and drain out the liquid. I would check my bucket every 2 to 3 days to see what kind of liquid you have in there. mostly fruits, since they're high in water content, will give you a lot of Bokashi juice. And I call it Bokashi juice for this. The liquid or the water that's coming out of the food has been mixed and inoculated with the beneficial microorganisms that are impregnated on this stuff right here. When the moisture gets to it and the food gets to it, the microorganisms that are on this dry bran that are hibernating right now will wake up. And when you get that liquid and you bring it out of the spout here, that liquid is also a liquid fertilizer. It is alive with actinomycetes. You have fermenting yeasts, fermenting fungi. You have lactobacillus. You have a lot of biology, microbiology that's at work for you. And it comes out in that liquid as a leachate, and that liquid can be used. So to go back over it, all you need is a bucket. It would be nice if you had a bucket with a spout, but you don't need a bucket with a spout. If you do, all the better. And then you're going to need food. In my case, I'm going to show you that we're going to use everything that we had in the fridge. We've got a little bit of salad here it's not rotten, it's just going brown, it's a little unappealing. We've got some bread here. And remember, in Bokashi composting, you can use everything. So we've got some hot dogs, we've got some onions, a little more bread. I'm going to show you, we're even going to use some cake. This is cake, it dried out a little bit. Still looks good, but I wouldn't eat it. It's, you know, a little bit dry. So that's something typically you're not going to see in a compost pile. Some other things that you're going to see us put in there, red beets. They were okay. Didn't turn out as good as we liked them to. They were store-bought, and they just didn't work out the way we wanted them to. And here we have some red peppers that we had. A little bit of salad here. You notice the salad's got a little bit of liquid to it. Usually I try to drain the liquids off. Bokashi composting, you know, I guess you can do liquids. It's just best if you don't. You can drain the liquid out, but just to prove a point that it can be done, and I'll show you how to do it if you do have something with some liquid in it, we're going to leave the liquid in here. All right, guys, here we go. Take your Bokashi wheat bran, rice bran, sawdust that's been inoculated, doesn't matter. As long as it's got the microorganisms on it, that's what we want. Reach in and just grab you a little handful. These aren't exact measurements, guys. This isn't going to be rocket science. This isn't going to be one of those compostings where you've got to read a book to get the right CN ratio, the right temperature. Am I going through a thermophilic stage, a mesophilic stage? No, guys, this is composting at its easiest and its best. Get yourself a little handful, sprinkle it in the bottom just to cover the bottom a little bit, and start putting your food in. So the first thing we're going to do, let me see, let's put a little of the lettuce. What I'm going to do is make layers, like lasagna layers. You go ahead, you put a little food in. You can chop it up, make it as small as you'd like. The smaller it is, the more surface area you have for the bacteria and the fungi to take a hold and to work on, just like standard composting. The smaller, the better. I've got about a inch and a half layer. You can go up to about 2-inch layer. Take just a little bit more of your wheat bran, a little bit less than what you started out with. Put it in there. And that's it, guys. And you go layering. So my next layer I'm going to put in there is going to be the hot dog buns. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this way. The hot dog buns, being a bread, can absorb a lot of moisture. And I had one high moisture item, which was the salad with the cucumbers. I told you that you can compost some liquids. It's better if you don't, but just to prove a point that you can, I'm going to put the bread down in here, and then I'm going to put this stuff with the liquid on top, in the fact that the bread will soak up a lot of the liquid. When you use a liquid or something like this, you want to use a little bit more wheat bran or rice bran or whatever bran you're using. You want to use a little bit more. Spread it out evenly. Since it is a liquid, I'd like to put just a touch bit more in there. So reach in, get you some. and just evenly put it on there and just continue this whole process. Every layer that we're doing this to, we're inoculating with the beneficial microorganisms. And right now, as they're on there, they're getting wet and they're actually activating. And within a matter of minutes, they're going to wake up. And in a matter of hours, they're going to start composting.